You will learn something new today, something that blew my mind when I read the book, The Molecule of More. There's actually one molecule that could determine whether you can get back with your ex or not. Yeah, it's crazy. I'm going to explain everything after the jingle. It's from the book, The Molecule of More, from Dr. Lieberman. I'll put the description, the link if you want to have a look. Basically, there's one important molecule, one thing that we create in our brain, and that molecule can determine whether your relationship can be recovered or not.
IGetMyExBack.com. Everyone deserves a second chance.
And so I discussed about recovery, I discussed about the chances for you to get back with your ex, and you know what, that's what I also assess in the quiz. So I put together a quiz, and I looked at how I created the quiz, and it's exactly the same of what we will cover in the video. Take the quiz, it takes 2 minutes, it's totally free. You get the results right away, and it will give you an idea, more clarity in terms of your chances of whether or likelihood for you to get back with your ex or not. Let's talk about a bit of science, neuroscience, the love molecules, right? So the concept in the book of The Molecule of More, the author talks about looking down versus looking up. So when you're looking down, for example, at your desk, what you can see is your hands, your lap, maybe your laptop, your table, anything that you can reach, right? When you can look up, it's sort of infinite, like you have the sky, the roof, things that you can't control, things that you can't touch, okay? And if you think of how our brains are designed, we split the world into these two spaces, the things that we can touch, that are in arm's length, and the things that we can't. And it's called, the scientific way, is peripersonal versus extrapersonal. Okay, it's very important for you to understand this concept, because one is driven, or one key molecule helping us to be in the, what they call the H and N neurotransmitter, the here and now serotonin, is totally different than the dopamine. The dopamine is really about how can I reach, how can I get more, molecule of more. Okay, if you think about that, that's why we have more dopamine, and we create more dopamines than most animals proportionally, is because as we are kind of weak animals, and we develop that ambition is about dopamine. Ambition is about how can I reach further, how can I not be complacent with what I have, because tomorrow I might not have food, tomorrow I might be chased by, I don't know, a tiger or whatever. So I want to get more, I want to climb the trees, I want to get more of this, I want to be able to expand my horizon, I want to learn more, and so on. Okay, so it's an evolutionary advantage, and we're going to look at how it works in today's world, how it works in relationship, because it's fascinating how we can link those molecules to our relationships, and to also the dynamic of your relationships after the breakup. Dopamine and pleasure. So if we do a bit of history, and it's very, very short summary if you want to know more about dopamine, again, I highly recommend the book. But basically, Dr. Montague was the first one to identify and label the dopamine as a pleasure molecule, because he did an experiment with rats, giving them cocaine, and they wanted more cocaine, and they sort of measured the dopamine in their brain, and they could link that the more cocaine, the more dopamine, and therefore dopamine was the molecule of pleasure. But there was another experiment later on with Professor Schultz from Australia, who did an experiment with monkey, providing food, but providing food in sort of in a surprising way. So they would like have flashlights, and if they answered correctly, they would have food. And so they would repeat the same pattern, and after a while, dopamine secretion from the monkey was stable, or was nil, because every time they could solve the puzzle, they knew the answer, and therefore they didn't get any excitement from it. They didn't get any surprise from it. And so they realized that dopamine was not only pleasure, i.e. I want more food, I want more things. It's because also of the unexpected things. Okay, you see how important, how interesting it is when we talk about a relationship. And in a way, our brains are all addicted to surprises. We receive a message from your ex, a lover, whatever, and what will he or she say? We get a notification on our phone. What's the news? Any notification? Who tagged me on Facebook? What's my best friend's story? What they're up to? And of course, social media and phone, any brands of phones know this better than you, how to design, in terms of UX, how to design things that will tickle your dopamine rush, that would want you to know more. That's why, I mean, Apple was, I don't think it was, they were the first one, but with this sort of little thing on the app telling you like there's something you should watch because there's something, you're just getting an email. You want to know more, you want to be excited. Same with slot machines. They are amazingly advanced in terms of neuroscience and know what you want. Slot machines are by definition random. And so we want to know what would be the outcome, and we put one thing, and then we want to know another outcome, and the outcome is different. Candy Crush is the same. They take exactly the same mechanism as slot machines. So we are in a world of tools and technology that are pushing us to get that surge of dopamine. And so the scientific word is novelty, reward, prediction, error. We make predictions all the time. When we walk on the pavement, we make prediction that our step will be at this place. That's why sometimes we fall down, because we make sometimes wrong prediction. We thought that the pavement would be flat and there's just a tiny step, and we miss that because we assumed, we make assumption, we make prediction. And so what we are getting with the dopamine surge is when we get those happy errors. And we love those happy errors. That's why we are so keen on getting on our phones to read our notification. Maybe you got a notification from YouTube that I was posting a new video. You saw my face like, oh yeah, I want to know more. There's something new. Okay, so I use a little bit dopamine as well. So now it's very important for you to listen to this slide, because that's what will determine, that's what will help you understand the true nature of your relationship with your ex. Is your love like my local bakery? So, I love pain au chocolat. Almost every day. I know it's not healthy, but almost every morning I get to my local bakery. And when they open, I was so excited about their pain au chocolat. And I would have one, and it would be the best pain au chocolat ever, or the best pain au chocolat in London at least. And I would really cherish that pain au chocolat, the excitement of that new thing. I was so happy. And we all have experiences of the new shop opening in your neighborhood, the new restaurant, the new thing. We want to try new things, okay? And usually retailers are really good at pushing customers into their shops because we crave novelty, right? The problem is, as we build a relationship, as I go every day in my bakery, I need to transition from chasing to having, right? And you see the difference between the dynamic of, yeah, I want this, the idea of that pain au chocolat, the idea of this new thing, to something of, again, we're going to do the prediction. I had expectation about that pain au chocolat, or had an idea about this pain au chocolat, I fantasized pain au chocolat. Then I had it. It was a good surprise. The next day, I still have this idea, and it's still new to me, so I have another one, and I feel great about it. But every day, if I have a pain au chocolat every day, which is almost what I do, there's no surprise. It's always the same pain au chocolat. It's always the same cappuccino. It's always the same drink. It's always the same shop. And so it's very important for you to understand that in all relationship, we go from a phase of chasing to a phase of having. And what the problem is, some people think that I don't love that person anymore because I don't have the thrill of dopamine. I'm not good for a relationship because I don't have anything tickling, because it's day to day, it's routine. And so that's why sometimes people, and that's why also people who call me and had these passionate relationships, they're struggling to understand, or they're struggling to appreciate the fact that it's harder for me to help them, because what I do with my clients and as a relationship counselor, my job is to help you build sustainable relationships. Relationships where you be with your spouse or your partner for the next 10 to 20 years. And when you're with someone for 10 or 20 years, you don't get any surge of dopamine. You have to rebalance. You have to go from a position of I need to chase, I need to go up in the sky and have this fantasy, to the here and now. To being happy to be with that person. And so it's very important, and that's what we discuss in Ellen Fisher discuss. She's an anthropologist, famous anthropologist, who says that passion lasts between 12 to 18 months. That excitement of seeing your partner, that excitement of doing something new. You know, after 6 months or 12 months, you move in together, and it's exciting to move in together. But then 6 months down the line, a year down the line, living together doesn't have the same impact. It's different, right? You're living together. But the day you moved in with your partner, that's an excitement, that's a new experience, that's something exciting. There's so many uncertainties. Some people are less, sometimes a bit overwhelmed by uncertainty. But that gives you the thrill. And sometimes people feel more comfortable by planning and getting control, but it's still, you're still fighting, you're still getting new things, fighting the routine. And so we need to transition from passionate to companionate love, from novelty to affection. And so that's my question for you in this video. Would you label your relationship as a passionate relationship, which is totally fine, or you went beyond this passionate relationship, you had something substantial, that here and now relationship where you built something, where you were able to be happy with that person, not only seeking pleasure, but also be happy with that person. And of course, there's also an element of creating that thrill and that dopamine and fighting the routine, but it's just finding the right balance. At the beginning, we're really high in dopamine, really high in terms of novelty and excitement, and then things fade away and needs to transform to something that is more affectionate, that is more about building, that's more about the here and now and the pleasure to be with that person. The problem I have working with people who haven't been through that here and now phase is that it's harder for me to leverage strong foundation. Because if you're with someone, if you're in love with the idea of falling in love, if you're in love with that excitement, with the places you've been, with the sex you had, I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm saying it's not enough. When I work with my clients, I work with people who have kids, who've been married, who've been together for 5 to 10 years, and they had that history. They had this moment of building intimacy, relationship, over values, over the same vision in life. Dopamine, you can have shallow relationship. It's all about what they're going to do this weekend, what they're going to do for holidays, right? It's not about how do I see life. It's not about what matters to you. It's not about how can I make you happy. It's obviously harder. I do believe it's more fulfilling to find happiness rather than pleasure. And if you think about it, that's where we all need to strive. Of course, when I was a teenager, I was all about pleasure, and I think when you're young, it's all about pleasure, and you understand that there's the distinction between pleasure and happiness. So, what you have to understand is after the breakup, assess objectively whether your relationship was a passionate relationship, whether you went through that phase, and actually this phase never ended, and you broke up at this stage, and you've never been in this here and now. whether that relationship, the breakup was the result of boring relationship. So of course, in this video, I pushed a lot about the fact that it's so important to be able to transition, but at the same time, if you don't create any experiences creating dopamine, your relationship becomes boring. I can hear almost every day, at least twice a week, people telling me, I've been complacent in my marriage. I haven't put any effort. I wasn't there for my spouse. I didn't invest. I took her or him for granted. I hear that every week. So you have to find ways to create that dopamine, to create new things, to create new routines, whether it's sex, whether it's activities, whether it's things with your kids, whether it's projects. You can find ways to create that dopamine rush within your relationship, and it's essential, right? So it's very important for you to understand those things, because you can also understand which lever you can pull. Maybe it's about creating more dopamine in your ex's brain. Maybe it's about, for you, creating more serotonin, being the here and now, understanding what you want. Maybe your ex was just a dopamine junkie and would never commit. I talk about attachment style in other videos. I don't think it's a different aspect of things, because the attachment style is more about the parents. The dopamine is different because it's not the same way the brain would work, but in a way it's a little bit the same. Like if you are with someone who's just about passionate love or just about creating that surge of dopamine versus someone who wants to build something substantial, a fulfilling relationship, there's going to be a clash, right? So you have to be mindful about them. You have to also be to understand the importance of also dopamine and serotonin when you're in that recovery phase. Manage this surprise effect. Manage the idea of this uncertainty in your ex. You don't have to be, even if you're the dumb P, you don't have to be the one giving answer, letting the other to have control. That's also your opportunity to play a little bit with a bit of surprise. Of course, there are ways to do it, there are things to avoid, but that's the idea of managing dopamine, managing serotonin. If you've learned something new today, please let me know in the comment. I want to know, because I'm reading a lot of books and I'm going to do a lot of book summaries on my website that I will release shortly. So let me know if you want me to talk about a specific book that you read and you felt was really helpful for you, and B, if you found this video helpful. That does help me a lot, so I can also tailor my content. Take care of yourself. Bye bye.
igetmyexback.com. Everyone deserves a second chance.